So now I want to talk about what's going on in the mind of your listeners as you are presenting and trying to persuade. So some of the people in your audience, it doesn't matter how strong your arguments are, how persuasive your presentation, how clear and logical and powerful your presentation is, it's not going to make any difference. Some people, they have their mind set on the issue. They might agree with you. They might disagree with you. But no matter what you say or do, they're not going to change their mind. Maybe they're listening to you. Maybe they're kind of just waiting for you to agree with them. But they're really not being persuaded by your speech. And they're the ones sitting there with their arms crossed and either shaking their heads no or shaking their heads yes. But I wouldn't worry too much about that group of people. I don't want to say forget about them, but they're already set, and it's doubtful that things are going to change from your speech coming to their ears. They're not going to change. Then there's another group of people, and according to elaboration, the likelihood model of understanding how we process information, these people are what are called peripheral processors. They are really not concerned or not thinking as much about the specific content and strength of arguments of your speech, but they are being persuaded by things like, how does the presenter dress? How does their hair? Do they look neat? Do they look professional? Do they look and sound like they know what they are talking about? Do they like the sound of their voice? Are they impressed with the amount of research that you have done, the number of references that you make in your presentation? Do they notice the number of arguments? Not so much the quality or strength, but the quantity of argument after argument after argument. Even if they are weak and kind of off target, they're impressed with the amount of arguments, not necessarily logic, but the amount of arguments that you are presenting. And even if you touch them emotionally, that they are impacted by the compassion you show or the stories that you tell. And these folks, yeah, that's good. You want to impress them, but that just shows the way that they process information. But then there is a third group that are called, according to that theory, central processors. And these people who are listening deeply to what you have to say, they are evaluating your credibility. Do you speak knowing your information? Do you speak with confidence? Have you done your research? Do you provide supportive material for your position? Is there a reasoning and a logic? Do things make sense involved in your presentation? In addition to that, did you make an emotional appeal? You know, these folks are not completely emotionless, but the issue of logic and the power of your presentation has more of an impact than simply the emotion by itself. And I don't know if you're trying to impact these folks the most, but just understand there are different people in your audience, and these are the people who will think through and truly listen and evaluate, looking at everything you have to say. So just understanding who is there. Then the textbook also then talks about a group called your target audience. And in other words, who in your audience? Some people aren't going to listen. They really don't care about your presentation. They just have to be there. But you want to persuade the people who are going to listen, think, evaluate, and then make a decision based on your presentation. And these are the people you're trying to impact the most, and this is what we call your target audience. In fact, television commercials are quite often designed and aimed at a target audience. Is it children? Is it adolescents? Is it young adults, millennials? Is it baby boomers like me, those born between 1946 and 1964? There were about 70 million of us, one of the biggest buying and influencing bundles of people through the history of the United States. Is it the baby busters? Is it the senior adults? Although most baby boomers are now senior adults, mid-70s to mid-50s. At 60 years old, I'm kind of on the tail end of that. But we need to understand that when they create commercials, one size doesn't fit all. They do research, they evaluate, they understand their market, and then they develop a commercial aimed at a specific audience with elements in the commercial that they believe will be the most influential with that particular group. Their economics, their spending power, their preferences, their likes of certain colors, red cars over gray cars, whatever it might be. And in the classroom, if we were meeting in the class, I would have you do a survey in the classroom so that when you're doing your speech on spaying or neutering your dogs, and if you do your survey and you know that everybody is in agreement, well, that's kind of a rah-rah speech that everybody agrees, but it's not going to be as much fun to have people thinking and evaluating about that speech. But if you did that survey, and I would give 3 points extra credit, we just can't do it in this situation, you could then design your speech with your illustrations and examples of the target audience that you're aiming at. Maybe you're looking to persuade women, even though there are men in the room. Maybe you're trying to persuade men, even though there are women in the room. And so you just choose your illustrations, your language, maybe how you dress, maybe how you speak, depending on who it is you are aiming at in your audience, because we're probably not going to aim at everybody equally. And so the textbook talks more about that, and I really can't. You can maybe think about who was in the classroom before we left and then aim at that group, because that is your audience that you had. Okay, so let's take a break there before the next video.